Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of D4 D&D Deep Dive. I've got some special guests with me today from Wizards of the Coast, and we're here to talk about stuff from the new Ravenloft book, The Horrors Within, which I'm super excited about. And so I want to introduce Makenzie and Wes, but maybe it would be best for my viewers, for those who don't know you guys, would you mind introducing yourself really quick and just letting us know about you and what you do for Wizards of the Coast?
All right, I'm Makenzie Diarmas. I am a senior game designer for Dungeons and Dragons over at Wizards of the Coast. Which basically means if you've opened up a D&D book in the past five-ish years, I've written some of the words that you've seen in the book, and I've done some of the math and done some of the dice crunching for the numbers and things that you see in that book.
Um,
And I'm Wes Schneider. I'm a principal designer on Dungeons and Dragons here at Wizards of the Coast. I am the lead on Ravenloft, The Horrors Within. But for a lot of our conversations today, we're going to be laying things up to Mac because she did an incredible amount of the work on the subclasses for this book, really helping you get your teeth into like the horror of your own characters.
right. Awesome. Well, for those who might be watching who are not particularly familiar with me, but maybe saw the thumbnail and thought it was interesting and clicked on it, I typically do character builds for Dungeons and Dragons, right, on my channel, and it's mostly pretty into the weeds on rules and balance, and it gets a little min-maxy and a little crunchy and a little optimizy, but I always try to build my characters around a concept and kind of think fun first and maybe power second. Depends on the day. Maybe it's power first and fun second. But anyways, um, as I was reading over this book, which I really am enjoying and super excited about, I already did a build actually for that I just released a couple of days ago. At the time of this recording, it was kind of a multi-class between the new Hollow Warden Ranger and the updated Phantom Rogue. It's right up here in the top corner if people want to check that out. But as I've been reading through it, and I know you guys are on a time crunch, we only have kind of less than 30 minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes. I had two or three kind of things that really popped out to me as far as like questions and things that I was curious about as far as that I wanted to pick your guys' brain on from kind of a design perspective. And I was hoping I could, you could help us sort of peek behind the curtain a little bit on a couple of things and both kind of let us know what the thought process was behind some things that changed in particular with the Grave Cleric, and then maybe that changed from Unearthed Arcana to the version that we ended up with the Hollow Warden Ranger. So why don't I just jump right in,
Yeah.
if that's okay? So first up, let me ask you about the Grave Cleric, and maybe this can be a brief conversation in general about kind of the state of like burst damage or nova damage, as some people like to call it in game, right? Doing lots and lots of damage kind of over a single round kind of thing. The Grave Cleric, for those who don't know yet and haven't seen the details, they got some nice love at level 3, right? In the form of like a little bit more sustained damage from their Circle of Mortality feature that's going to add a little extra damage once per turn to things that they do potentially. Their Path to the Grave Channel Divinity is a bonus action now, which is great. It used to be an action, right? And it does some additional things. It debuffs enemies for a round potentially, which is really nice. That said, they did get a bit of a reduction in their burst damage capability, right? Whereas that Path to the Grave used to cause like the enemy to have vulnerability to all damage, right, on the next kind of hit that they took, which potentially could be a lot of damage, right? Very devastating, kind of double damage on a hit. And that's changed now to do just kind of a little extra bonus damage equal to cleric level. And so it's had me thinking, ever since the 2024 update came out, it's been almost 2 years now, right? I feel like we have seen a lot of kind of reduction in kind of burst or nova damage capability from things like, not being able to like fireball, action surge if you've got a fighter multi-class dip, right? And fireball again. Or the paladins, can't Divine Smite or any smite more than once per round, as opposed to, you used to be able to kind of try and find ways to make 3 or 4 attacks per turn and smite on all of them, right? Assassin rogues don't automatically critical on their, first round of combat. It's just kind of some bonus damage. And so, yeah, I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on both the change that was made to the Grave Cleric and kind of why you wanted to go that route, but then also, if I could ask you to maybe comment on the design philosophy behind this reduction to burst damage. For the record, I miss it sometimes. I don't necessarily think it's a terrible thing, like for game balance, but I'd love to know kind of your guys' thoughts on it.
So one of the first places that we start with a lot of our subclass design is, of course, always with our Unearthed Arcana experience. It's just like when we put something out there, what are the reactions we get? What is the feedback from the community? How do folks feel about it in general? There's a lot of the times where we'll put elements out in Unearthed Arcana that we know are maybe pushing the limits, or a little wahoo, or like, hey, here's this wild idea. Let's just try it out. And what I love is that more often than not, the community is like, oh yeah, that's why. Like, you guys could go farther, actually. And we absolutely love to see that. On the other side of it, we do get a considerable amount of feedback where it's like, well, have you considered this? Have you thought about this? Have you seen these elements before? I'm concerned about this at my table. So a lot of the times when we do end up drawing something back, it is a result of feedback that we're getting through the Unearthed Arcana experience. The other side of it, though, is, and we can argue both sides of this, but one of the other sides of this is that there are elements that we see again and again throughout our designs that do not necessarily suggest a internal design philosophy. I think it's very easy for folks who in literally our design pit to be like, oh, this pattern of these last classes suggests that they think this way or that they think these way. Sometimes it absolutely does, particularly when we were exploring the 2024 rules. There was over a decade of feedback of like, oh, folks do like this, they don't like this, they have concerns about the systems. Let's move these elements around. But particularly for this book, for Ravenloft Horrors Within, a lot of our focus was on what are the scariest elements, what are the scariest subclasses from that we've done in previous products and that we want to get out there now. Not necessarily, let's highlight new design philosophies through this. So in this particular case, while it is absolutely easy to see from what we've put out since the 2024 rules, oh, I can see this pattern here. Anybody who thinks that there might be a specific design philosophy that's growing out of that, I would suggest, wait a minute. Now, all of that being said, there are absolutely elements of this where, like I said, in the playtests, sometimes things move up and down. Our designers definitely, we put things through our own internal rock tumblers, but those are all elements where, like, if you're not seeing something that you're excited about, or you're thinking that things are moving in a trajectory that's not something that you want to see, or is something that you've seen before that you really want us to bring back, my biggest advice, tell us, participate in those UAs, because there's I've seen a lot of those sorts of like requests for feedback where it doesn't seem like they go anywhere. With our studio, we pour over these things. These have so much impact on our design because this is a collaborative game and we want to be making all of this with our community.
And I can talk very specifically about the decision for the Grave Domain Cleric. Speaking also as someone who also really loves Nova damage as a player, I love doing massive amounts of damage. It's so fun. I have inadvertently scarred one of my DMs with the phrase, and that was my bonus action, as I played a sorcerer who was very tactical because I happened to know the rules of the game pretty well and could easily go, I know this spell does this amount of damage on average, so it's going to be most effective to do this. I messed up a lot of their planned encounters.
Yeah.
But all that to say, as a person who loves no damage, for the Grave Domain very specifically, the reason why we changed it was actually because the way that the previous Path of the Grave feature was structured actually could result in more feel bad moments than feel good moments. The way that the wording was done was that when you put this curse on, the next attack that hit the cursed creature would have vulnerability and would essentially do double damage. And if you were playing with a party that was really like smart and really lucky, then that feature could do a lot of damage. But if you were playing with a party who was not that tactical, or the attack that you were really hoping would hit and trigger that vulnerability missed, or if someone didn't realize or took an opportunity to attack before that creature that you wanted to hit the creature took their turn and then swiped that vulnerability without thinking, there were a lot of steps to essentially, I don't want to say failure because it's not necessarily failure, but there was a lot of steps that would actually make that feature do way less damage than we had intended and way less damage in a way that feels good. And so one of the things that we tested was, can we make the damage a little bit more consistent while also, and give you a little bit more control over when this feature triggers so you can really be more tactical and foster a better sense of teamwork with your players and the other people around the table. And so that's kind of the thought behind specifically Path to the Grave and why we made those changes.
Yeah.
A lot of times what you'll see in design is less of us trying to take things away from powerful min-max players because hey, surprise, hey, it's me, I'm a min-maxer, I love those things. I always cry a little bit when we got to remove a fun wombo combo.
Yeah.
It is honestly to put in guide rails to ensure we avoid feel bad moments. And we basically put in these guardrails to ensure overall stewarding a better play experience for a larger number of players, especially those who are not as nitpicky or desire to not be as nitpicky and over and analyzing about the rules as some of us enjoy to be.
Right.
But that being said, we did still want to, honor that tacticalness of it. And so that's why it's a ongoing curse, but then you can choose when to trigger and deal that extra damage. So other effects can kind of proc off of, I've done this thing, now domino effect.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and it's true. Like when anytime in the past when I would build around the Grave Cleric, usually since I'm operating in a vacuum and I don't know who your party is and who you're playing with, it'd be like, okay, we're going to use this feature, but in order to make the best use out of it, we're probably either taking a 2-level fighter dip so I can action surge, letting me trigger this, and then I get to make the attack kind of thing, or maybe like a sorcerer dip so I can quicken spell something so that I'm hitting hard with a bonus action still now that I've set up the Path to the Grave, etc. So
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's one of those things where it's like we have to balance the desire for rewarding inside baseball knowledge, which is still something we entirely do and will build in, while also making sure that you do not need to have like studied the dark magic in order to make sure that the subclass hits our internal metrics and our internal math and is generally like, if you don't know the inside baseball, suddenly this cleric is super weak.
Right.
We want to avoid that.
Right. And to be fair, I think like you said, there is some cool stuff here that you can get pretty tactical with Path to the Grave, because kind of depending on who's going next and when, you know what I mean? You can kind of say, oh, great, well, like I'm going to set up this debuff on them so that they've got disadvantage on their attack rolls and on their saving throws, and maybe that's going to be really good for some party members. But then it's like, okay, now here comes the big hit. do a little
If
extra
you
damage
like,
kind of thing.
there is a world where you can use the curse to set up a hold person, which or the hold person, which would do a paralyze, which then could mean automatic crits. Like
Right.
there is a world where you can do that 1, 2, 3 combo in a
Right.
way that actually gives you a lot more control. Versus, God, I hope the rogue hits next, and if it doesn't, this was a waste of a curse. But we're doing
Yeah.
our best.
It's like, dang it, the wizard's gonna cast, firebolt on
Yep.
their turn and blow my path to the grave because they came next in initiative or whatever. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's move on to Hollow Warden Ranger. Okay, so love this subclass. It's probably my favorite subclass from the book. One of the two new ones, and I really like the Reanimator Artificer too. That's fun and gross in a good way. But
We love Flesh Puppy.
but the thing that stood out to me the most about the Hollow Warden, right, was this change that was made from Unearthed Arcana to their Wrath of the Wild. So for those who don't know, when Hollow Warden was in Unearthed Arcana, they have this kind of self buff, Wrath of the Wild, where when you would cast Hunter's Mark, this is how it was in the UA, right? Then you would kind of get these buffs on yourself that were great. For release, it ended up getting changed to not when you cast Hunter's Mark, but when you can burn a use of your favored enemy ability that gives you free casting of Hunter's Mark twice per day, right? So not quite the same thing, similar, but you can burn a use of your favored enemy to then buff yourself in these ways, right, as a bonus action, and we got a new flavor, a new extra buff from Unearthed Arcana too, which I really love, and I kind of tried to build around with the build that I did earlier this week. I love this, and the reason why is I'm sure you well actually this is maybe part of my question. I feel like I hear a lot in the I don't know D&D optimizey zeitgeist, if such a thing exists, probably in Reddit forums, undoubtedly. That like there's some angst around in the player community, at least from my perspective, around tying Ranger in general and maybe Ranger subclasses in particular to the Hunter's Mark spell, right? Where like you only get this benefit when you have Hunter's Mark active. Maybe you do extra damage against your target. Maybe for a Beastmaster, your pet can do cool things to your Hunter's Mark target, etc. And while that's cool and fun and flavorful, potentially challenging in that, maybe you want to be concentrating on a different spell, right? And so then there's kind of this conflict. And so I think when Hollow Warden was in UA, and I saw that feature and that it was tied to Hunter's Mark, part of me kind of went, oh man, that's cool to be able to buff yourself and get the Hunter's Mark spell going all with a single bonus action. But like, I don't love that it's kind of tied to Hunter's Mark in this way because again, like what if I want to do Summon Beast or Summon Fae or whatever, right? As you progress in your levels. And so it got changed. And so I'm wondering, like how much of that message do you guys hear from the community? Or is that something that like in our little echo chamber of optimizers, we think everybody hates that it's always tied to Hunter's Mark, but like really that's just 10% of us and the other 90% love it or whatever, right? So how much of that may or may not be going on? And then, yeah, just like tell me about the change that you made, why you decided to make it, and if it's a sign for things to come, maybe with future Hunter or Ranger subclasses.
So you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about it, where the original intention was that we didn't want you to have to sync multiple bonus actions over a course of multiple turns to do cool things, which is the original intention behind tying it to Hunter's Mark. But we, as Wes was talking about the Unearthed Arcana process and people doing those comments, we heard the feedback very loud and clear, and Wrath of the Wild is truly one of the best examples of the Unearthed Arcana process working as intended. Originally, we had it tied to concentration with your Hunter's Mark, so that way you could do a bunch of things on a single turn. But also, we really cranked up some of those benefits. Like the AC bonus used to be huge. I remember seeing some very fun AC focused builds with that Unearthed Arcana when that came out. And so when we got the feedback that people were like, hey, I really don't want to be concentrating on this, especially because this is a ranger that is really inclined for melee fighting. And so I'm going to be taking a lot of hits. I'm going to lose concentration. This feels bad. And we were like, cool, great. We still have a really cool resource that we can use that's kind of built into the foundation of the 5.5e ranger with favorite enemy. Why don't we still use that as another resource and give you something else? And so that is from that is what the new Wrath of the Wild was born. And because of that, because it's no longer, you do have to sink a couple extra bonus actions in, and it is no longer tied to concentration. We did dial down some of the features. So the AC bonus you'll see is no longer absolutely absurd, but it's still pretty good. And we also gave you a feature that really emphasizes, again, that melee focus and that melee inclination for the Hollow Warden as well. While you can also still later cast your Hunter's Mark and do anything else you want to do with that, with on your turn as you mow through enemies as a terrifying cryptid. But yeah, that's all that to say, when you ask like what kind of feedback do we hear and how much do we hear of it, we hear and see a lot. Every time an Unearthed Arcana comes out, I'm always just like lurking on the edges of conversations, just going, what do people like? What do people not like? And whenever we get that feedback, we go through every comment and we summarize all of them down into actionable items that we can change. We have a full, robust process for analyzing all of that. And it's truly such an invaluable resource to us. And it results in really awesome design like the Hollow Warden.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything to add, Wes?
No, Makenzie hit it spot on. I mean, again, I mentioned it briefly before, but I think a lot of people see like fill out the survey and are so like inured to it, just like in our lives in general. To double, to triple, to quadruple down, it matters. Like we dedicate whole staff members for expansive amounts of time to pour through all of that. We all see it. We read through it. Like one of the first thing a new designer here has to learn is how to put on your design armor. It's like, because you're going to take some blows from that, but you need to see past a lot of like some of the grar and be like, but what's the message here? What's the design note? We all want this game to be as awesome as possible. How can we do that as a community and collaboratively?
Yeah. And truly, it's the way that we figure out, like, is this opinion that I saw on the internet a minority opinion, or is it something that a lot of people really want? We really use that survey data. So if y'all are ever worried, is this just me in my little echo chamber, or is this something that a lot of people want? Put word in survey, and then we'll see. And then also, truly, if you put word in survey, and then it turns out when the final design comes out, you're like, hey, this change that I wanted didn't come through. 9 times out of 10, it's possibly because it was for better or for worse, a smaller opinion within the community. And that doesn't make that opinion any less valid, to be clear. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you want something to change, we really need to see the glut of people want it. Because we designed this game for so many people. And it sometimes terrifies me to think about in a very fun way.
Yeah. I know that you guys are out of time, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on and giving us a little peek behind the curtain. Really loving the book. I hope that it's been successful for WotC thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate you saying so. I mean, like, this is still, it's very early days for us. So there's a lot of like, do people like it? So actually starting to get
Is this good? Did we do good?
Exactly. Like we all have that creative in it. So it's like, do you like it? But like,
Well,
But
good. No,
really appreciate you saying that.
it's hard to go wrong probably with Ravenloft and anything Strahd adjacent. So,
Yep. And truly,
cool.
I'm so excited for all the absolutely bonkers builds that you and your community make. Please know that I am always so excited when I see something go like, ah, yes, the exploit, good. I love it. So please keep doing that. I'm so excited to see what y'all build.
All right, awesome. We'll do it.
Right?
Okay.
Thanks for the time, Kofi.
Thanks, you too. Have a great
Catch you
day.
later. Bye.
Bye.